For thus said the Lord of hosts, after his glory sent me to the nations who plundered you. For he who touches you touches the apple of his eye. You said Zechariah 2:8, right?
Yeah. It's going to show that the Lord is sent. So if we go to we go to verse 9, right? We go to verse 9. The angel says, "Then you will know that the Lord Almighty has sent me." So therefore, the angel is just applying this prophecy, or quote unquote, like just saying for the future to himself. Therefore, the angel is the Lord Almighty being sent by the Lord Almighty.
Oh my goodness, you guys are so cooked. So the final statement is going to be said by Zechariah. This entire declaration at the end is made by Zechariah because of the fact, because of the fact that the Jews won't believe that they are really being returned. And we find many parallel verses in the Old Testament where the Jews wouldn't believe that they were really being redeemed because of the fact they had spent so long in Babylon and under Babylonian captivity. Hence the point is to say, after all this has happened, then you will know that I was sent by God.
Okay, so let's say, for example, in verse 8, you believe that God can be sent in the literal sense.
Sorry?
Do you believe that God can be sent?
No, but I don't believe this is referring to God. This is referring to Zechariah, right? Who says, and then,
No, in
right,
verse
you
8,
will know.
verse 8.
Yeah, again, the final statement of verse 8, the declaration at the end is made by Zechariah, who says, and then, meaning after all these events have transpired, you will know that I was sent by God.
I'm talking about, okay, I understand about verse 9, I'm talking about verse 8. For this is what the Lord Almighty says, after the glorious one has sent me. Who is the glorious one?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. You're speaking too fast and mumbling.
Yeah.
Who's the glorious one sending him?
Yeah, this is what Zechariah is hearing from the angel.
Okay.
The glorious one is going to be God.
Is the angel using agency?
No, this is what the angel is telling.
Okay.
Don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt me. This is what the angel is telling Zechariah to relate to the people. Meaning, relay these events to the people. Relay these events to the people. And then at the end, Zechariah says what? And then you will know that I was sent by the Lord.
Yeah, can you fix your connection, Yaakov?
This is just my regular house Wi-Fi. I can't fix it.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna argue. Yeah, so you're just saying that it's just gonna be what's gonna happen after Babylon, right?
Yeah, so after all these events, then you will know that I was truly sent by God, because of the fact that Israel would find it hard to accept this.
Okay, I'll grant you interpretation, but if we look at verse 8,
well, the question is let me interrupt if you don't mind. Why should I grant to your interpretation? What's your proof that your interpretation comes from the prophets? How can you prove this?
Yeah, I would just say that, for example, the Hebrew shows it.
No, again, your reading.
It's just gonna show that the Lord Almighty is saying that.
Your reading of the Hebrew shows this. But again, how do you justify and establish that you have the true interpretation of the verse?
How do I justify? I mean, by just reading it, I could just say that the Lord Almighty is quoting and saying that He is being sent by the glorious one. Therefore, that would show the quality of persons.
Okay, again, this is your interpretation of the verse. I provided you another one. So again, how do you establish that the way you're reading the verse is actually how the prophets read it, and not in my way?
How do I establish?
Yes, how do you establish that your reading of the verse is true? Again, you're just establishing it's a possible reading, but just because something is possible doesn't mean it's true. So again, how do you actually establish?
My reading.
I refuted your reading by showing, right, an alternative. So again, how do you establish that this reading, right, is true? Is the true reading?
Yeah, you showed me on verse 9. I want you to do it on verse 8.
Again,
you literally showed me on verse 9.
Can you address the question? Address the question. How do you establish that your reading is the correct one? Stop diverting.
Yeah, I could just say by the verse. Yeah, okay.
By what?
By the church fathers.
Okay, thank you.
The commentaries by priests.
Okay, so how do we establish that the church fathers had the true interpretation?
How do we establish? I mean, I would just grant apostolic succession.
Okay, again, how do we establish that the church fathers themselves have the true interpretation?
How do they have it? I would just say that they have just the tradition from the apostles. apostles, and them having Bible tradition from the apostles, and them having literal claims about them being the students and disciples of the apostles. I have no problem with it. So, I mean, you're asking about my paradigm, therefore you are granting my
Yes.
paradigm in order for me to explain to you for my paradigm. So I'm explaining it to you from my paradigm. Okay.
So how do we establish that the apostles had the true tradition?
Okay. How do we establish?
Yes.
Yeah, I just told you.
Again, you said the apostles gave the true tradition to the church fathers, which gave the tradition to you. But again, how do we establish that the apostles have the true tradition?
How do we establish? I would just say that by their claims, and if you look at the historicity of the Gospels, I wouldn't say that would just be like, I would just say that that's enough historical evidence, right? Like, I wouldn't say that, for example, the apostles necessarily have to just say, oh, but see, I am the disciple of that. So
Okay, you're not answering my question.
But the apostles just I'm trying to answer it.
You're not answering it. Again, how do we establish that the apostles had a true interpretation of the Old Testament? Meaning, how do we establish that the way in which the apostles read it is really the way, right, that God established?
Yeah, I would just say that they were just in continuity with Christ.
Okay, so again, how do we establish that Christ had the true traditions, or Jesus?
How do we establish that?
Yes, without being circular.
Without being circular? I mean, I would just say that for him being, for example, just as, for example, the prophets had the same justification for it, like them claiming that God has sent them. I would just say that can be applied to Christ, right?
Sorry,
I know
because he claimed that God sent him?
Say circular, but I'm just saying.
Because he claimed that God sent him is a proof that he's from God?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that that's the full justification of that. But what I'm saying is that, for example, if Jesus had the proof for what he if he had the proof of of him being sent by God and all that stuff, I would just say that.
Okay, what is this proof? What is this proof?
That's fine. I mean, I'm just gonna
What is this proof?
What is this proof? I would just say that. Yeah, I would just show like prophecies from the Old Testament.
But again, the entire point is that your prophecies are all in contention because I can't provide alternative readings. So, by the way, Sigma, I'm going to speak to you in 1 minute. Let me finish with this person, please. I'm going to speak to you. Let me finish.
Yeah, you're welcome to, bro.
Thank you. So again, right, how do we establish that the way in which you're reading these prophecies is indeed the way in which the prophets understood it?
Wait, repeat the question.
Okay. How do we establish the way in which you're reading these messianic prophecies? Because again, the entire point is that your Trinitarian prophecies are contingent upon the apostles, which is contingent upon Jesus. So again, right, you wanted to prove this via prophecies of Jesus. So again, how do we establish that your prophecies of Jesus are indeed the way in which, for example, the prophets taught it, so on and so forth?
How do we establish? I mean, I wouldn't say that you can have any type of external justification for it. I would just say that I can just trust what they said. I mean, by them proving what they believe, I wouldn't say that. Yeah, I mean, same by your question, same can be applied to the prophets, right? How do we know that, for example, how do we know, for example, like Ezekiel was sent by God or Elijah was sent by God? Like, I would just say that.
Stop diverting, quit pivoting. Address the question. Address the question. How do we establish? We have a way to determine. 1 second. We have a way as Jews to determine that Ezekiel was a true prophet. How do you establish that it comes from a divine source, please?
How do I establish?
Yes.
Wait, aren't you a Jew? Why are you asking me those questions?
Because I'm trying to establish that you don't really have a way to verify within your own tradition that your interpretations come from the prophets. The only way you can do so is really just by relying upon the Jews who have a tradition. So again, how do you establish that your interpretation of these messianic prophecies are indeed from God?
I mean, again, I would just we can just show, for example, here history, and we can just show, for example, the history to the Bible and how is it
This doesn't help your interpretation.
nothing.
This doesn't prove that the way in which you're reading these messianic verses are indeed correct if I can provide alternatives. I'm not asking about Ezekiel. Again, I'm asking about the way in which you read the Old Testament. How do you establish that the prophecies regarding Christ, right, you're reading in an objective manner? I want to ask like anyone a question. I just want to get a yes and no from anyone else, just in case I'm not following your answer. So if like anyone else can answer, just a yes or a no. Nothing more, please. Just a yes or a no. Has Natasa, however you see your name, has he answered my question? I can just get a yes or no from anyone else. Right.
He's answered some of your questions.
Has he like addressed the idea how he establishes that his
Depends on
interpretation?
which question are you referring to?
Yeah, has he given me like an objective answer in relation to my question of how he establishes that his messianic prophecies or his interpretation of them are correct? Just like a yes or no. Has he substantiated this?
Yeah.
Yes. Can I get an
According to his
explanation?
paradigm, maybe not yours.
Can I get like an explanation how he done so?
Well, he relied on the fathers.
Okay, but again, he couldn't demonstrate that the fathers had a true interpretation, which is what I was questioning him on.
Maybe from traditions of Jesus. I mean, it's your question.
Yes, this is what he said, but you can't prove that Jesus is the Messiah.
Yeah, and but your argument also gives light to the prophets. So by that, you also refute the prophets on the Old Testament.
Wait, but
I don't. 1 second, I'm speaking to
let me
him.
debate you on
I'm
Isaiah
speaking to him.
53, bro.
I'm speaking to your friend. Please mute. You can speak to me next. I'm in a discussion. Thank you. So again, right?
Sigma wants his rounds.
Sigma can have his round. But again, right, Natasa, how do you establish that the way in which you're reading the prophecy is indeed how the prophets taught it, without being circular and just relying upon your own personal interpretation?
Okay, I would just say by reading the text and by just having a rational interpretation of it, not by just saying, for example, I trust and I have this interpretation from the church fathers, or because of I mean being biased about it, but I'm just like rationally reading the text, I can come to the conclusion that, for example, you just gave me an alternative, but I would just tell you that this alternative doesn't work for verse 8. Yeah, because for verse 8, it really shows that God is literally sent by the glorious one, and you literally conceded that's going to be God. So therefore, you didn't show me an alternative verse 8. You just started asking questions about how do you know my interpretation is valid, bro?
Yes,
What
because let me respond, please. Because of the fact that for every argument you give me, if you can just go on mute for 2 seconds, just because there's a lot of background noise coming from you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate it. By virtue of the fact that I'm able to provide alternative explanations to these verses, proves that you aren't the only one merely just interpreting it rationally. I am also able to provide a rational answer. Number 2, I am able to substantiate that my interpretations are the true interpretations of the prophets by virtue of the fact that they actually go back to the prophets. This is something which you haven't proven yet, right? You haven't proven this yet. I am again asking you, how do you establish within your own paradigm, within your own tradition, that the interpretations you are citing are indeed the interpretations that come not from Jesus, but from the prophets?
Yeah, I just told you. You literally, for example, let me give you an example. It's like reading, for example, a book, and that has like multiple interpretation of it. I literally have to read the book in order for me to follow and say which interpretation I would follow, right? So I wouldn't say that I am biased about Christianity or interpretation. I was just giving the rational interpretation of it. You didn't get the rational interpretation of verse 8. You just literally started asking questions. So I will not answer anyone a question here if you don't answer verse 8.
Yo, is this safe to say that this isn't going anywhere?
Yeah, I don't think it is as well. But Doctor, can I debate you on Isaiah 53 now, bro?
You can debate me in a mutual platform, that's fine. 100%.
But wait, why can't you do it here, bro? Why can't you do it here?
I'll debate
Isn't this
you
a
right
mutual
now.
platform? I don't know either one of
1
you.
second.
We'll give you time to speak, and I'll remain mute.
If you cut me off, I'm going to leave, by the way. I'm happy to debate you right now, this second. As you asked me, you said, can I debate you
Here,
next?
let Dion moderate.
Let me speak, please. I am happy to debate you right now, this second. Message a Muslim, make him ask him to open a live. If he agrees to have him to host a live, I'm happy to speak with you this moment. I'm free for the next 20 minutes to open a discussion.
Wait, you said you talk to him after you're done talking to Nesta.
Yes,
why
I'm done now. So now he can open
the host will give you all your time you want.
Let me respond. I don't trust you. 1 second. And if you want to know why I don't trust you, just go and look at my YouTube channel, and you can see how Christians act to Jews, and then you'll understand why I don't trust Christians hosting their own debates.